Welcome to the Paragon Financial Partners Podcast, where we discuss the markets, our strategies, and how to live better today while planning for tomorrow. Hello, and welcome to the Paragon Podcast. I'm Elian Mendoza, and I'm here with our firm's founder and principal, Evan Shorten.
Hello, and thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoy today's topic on the 5 risks of retirement income planning.
So we received a lot of feedback from our December podcast on elder abuse and exploitation. We figured we would now expand on other risks that individuals face as they transition from their working years into their retirement years. Also, if you have not had a chance to listen to our elder abuse and exploitation podcast, we highly recommend it. There is a lot of good information in that episode, from examples of elder abuse to some of the warning signs you should be aware of. So with that said, Evan, can you address some of the risks new retirees face? We can start with longevity, which itself creates other types of risks.
Yes, of course. So longevity as a risk is ironically what many of us are hoping for. To live a longer life so we can hopefully one day see our future generations, grandkids, great-grandkids, as well as changes in the world. Unfortunately, longevity also poses the risk that we may one day outlive our assets. People live longer in our society today compared to even some recent decades. According to the Center of Disease Control, in 1990, women had a life expectancy of just under 79 years old, and men were living to the age of just about 72. Then, in the year 2000, life expectancy increased. Women were living on average to the age of 79.3 years and men to the age of 74. Starting in 2010, life expectancy increased to the age of 81 for women and just over the age of 76 for men. It's no longer uncommon for us to see someone living well into their 90s. In order to minimize the risk of longevity, you should consider planning for a life expectancy of the age of 95. Also, in order to prepare, aiming to maximize your 401k and IRA contributions every year in order to build a larger nest egg is crucial. For those of you who are still working, perhaps a year or two away from retirement, consider the option of giving it the extra push and continuing to add more to your retirement savings, whether it's in your retirement accounts or saving in your personal accounts. You can also consider working another 1 to 3 years if you really have it in you. And that's one way in which will make a very big difference. Aside from, of course, cutting one's expenses. When preparing for your retirement transition, consider incorporating a guaranteed income stream for at least a majority, if not all, of your fixed expenses. For those of you with many decades ahead, do not limit yourself to only saving 3% of your income, which is what most employer plans default to. Try to save between 10 and 25% of your income in tax-advantaged accounts whenever possible. It's important to save early, regularly, and significantly. However, it's also important to balance your life and expenses so you can live for today and not just save for tomorrow.
And it's also important to mention that with longevity comes the risk of inflation. And I think that's one of the risks that resonates most amongst people. I remember when gas was, I think, $2.80 when I started driving.
Funny, Elliot. I remember back in '89 when gas was 89 to 99 cents a gallon, and I'm sure many of our listeners remember when gas was 25 or 35 cents a gallon. So good for you, Elian. Thank you. So clearly our living expenses and day-to-day purchases continue to increase in costs. Additionally, the cost of healthcare continues to increase at a much higher rate than the traditional inflation rates that are talked about in the news. Historically, inflation in the U.S., as measured by the Bureau of Labor Statistics Consumer Price Index, has been about 3.3% since 1914. while healthcare has risen at an average rate of 5.45% since 1938. So whether you're about to retire or are several years into your retirement, it's important to continually plan for increasing healthcare costs and increasing costs in general to help you keep up and hopefully outpace the effects of the inflationary risks. Some of the things I would do to mitigate the rising healthcare costs include shopping around for lower costs of insurance or having a high deductible health insurance plan. Consider mail order for your prescriptions and asking for generic drugs, and simply asking for a discount. You can ask your doctor or contact the drug manufacturer directly and ask them for a supply of the medication that you're taking, whether it's 2 weeks or a month or a discount card. This is something that has proved to work quite well for me. And another option is establishing a health savings account. This is an account where you can contribute money, have a tax deduction, and have those contributions grow on a tax-deferred basis. When you pull the money out for the use of healthcare expenses, there would also be no tax due.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I really like the idea of asking your doctor or the drug manufacturer themselves for a discount. I actually never thought about that myself. With that, we should also talk about the risk of asset allocation. And what we mean by asset allocation risk is actually the risk of not having the appropriate asset allocation for your needs.
In retirement, the proper asset allocation should be diversified enough with income assets such as real estate and Treasury inflationary protected securities so that you can still generate the needed income even when interest rates are low, such as in our current environment, while reducing volatility in an erratic market. Having the right asset allocation can also reduce your risk of withdrawing assets at an unsustainable rate. So if the wrong asset allocation does not provide you with adequate income, you may be forced to withdraw more from your principal while reducing your overall account balance, making the risk of outliving your assets a potential reality. Reducing your expenses in retirement can mitigate the need to withdraw assets beyond your sustainable rate. In addition to having the right asset allocation, you should continually review and adjust your expenses. You can mitigate the risk of withdrawing your assets by making changes in your spending habits and lifestyle. You can possibly downsize your home to one with lower maintenance costs, or you can rent out your current home for income. Perhaps moving to a more tax-friendly state could be another option. It's important to realize that a very big part of this type of planning is learning how you define retirement and richly describing what it is that you're looking for.
Okay, great. So far, we've covered 5 retirement risks to be mindful of: longevity, inflation, rising healthcare costs, asset allocation, and your withdrawal rate. Finally, we want to mention deception and or fraud. As we age, we become much more susceptible to deception and fraud. This can encompass many things from upfront theft of your financial assets to elder abuse. It's always important to do your due diligence before working with any caretaker, professional, or service provider. Always obtain a second opinion from a qualified individual for any new service agreement or contract you engage in. Be wary of any friends who may inquire about your personal habits and finances. Always try to surround yourself with your loved ones and include them in any major events or life changes that might occur.
Yes, and we highly recommend you listen to our December 1st podcast on elder abuse and exploitation, as it goes into much more detail. As always, thank you for listening to the Paragon Podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and please share this information with your loved ones.
Paragon Financial Partners, Inc. is a registered SEC investment advisor. The broadcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered as a solicitation or offer to purchase or sell securities. The financial strategies and guidelines discussed herein may not be appropriate for everyone, as each individual circumstance is unique. Please review all tax information with your tax professional. Please review all legal information with your legal professional. We hope you enjoyed the Paragon Financial Partners podcast. And again, thank you for listening.